Michael Peterman is the CEO of VeraData, a pioneering company dedicated to transforming philanthropy through data-driven strategies. VeraData's mission is to equip NGOs with the right data to revolutionize fundraising decision-making, drive donor acquisition, and enhance engagement. Under Michael Peterman's leadership, VeraData is at the forefront of adapting to a changing donor landscape, ensuring fundraising success for its clients. Now is the time to unlock the full potential of philanthropy, with the ultimate goal of building a future where NGOs can increase giving, maximize impact, and drive positive change globally. Now, the conversation begins. Thank you so much, Michael Peterman, for joining me here on AwareNow. Share this space, to share this time, to share your story. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So let's do this. Let's take a trip in the way back machine, Michael. When you were a kid, what did you want to do when you grew up? Was it always your dream to be the CEO of a donor science company?
No. So it's funny, and it is a long way back. So I think looking back at that time, I wanted to be an attorney. And I guess if you think about it, attorneys use data to make their argument, right? They research, they investigate, and they use the power of words and fact patterns to defend a position. So I guess at its core, it's not so terribly different when you think about it that way. And in fact, I would say that one of the major applications of AI will be applying that technology for legal research and document preparation. So yeah, this was not, I don't know that anybody actually plans to be in the data and analytics business when they're kids.
Probably, yeah, no, I agree. But you're right, it's not too far off track from the destination that you had hoped for and dreamed of. So let's talk more about time, because over time, we learn, we grow, and as we do, we begin to understand more deeply and see more clearly. So my question now is, when did you first understand and really see the incredible power of data?
So I think there were steps along the way, but if I had to kind of narrow it down to that one point in time, it was in that 2004, 2005 timeframe. I was still in my former capacity with a company, my old company, AccuData, and we had acquired an analytics company. And at the time, we also had numerous national databases installed on our tech platform. So I loved analytics. That side of the business was really interesting. And as we got deeper into the process, I learned about, and I'm going to use some industry vernacular, but I learned about the importance of field density, of the different demographics, the variables. And that means that, an attribute needed to be 80% or more populated to be useful in those old school algorithms or models that we were using at that time, and very few of them were. And that left everybody kind of shuffling the same pieces of information around and no one really standing out. Machine learning, on the other hand, is able to use all of the information available, however densely or sparsely it is populated, to understand the incremental impact on the selection of the audience, which is what we were really focused on at that time. And it was game-changing, not only methodologically, but we were differentiated. Our ability to use multiple databases to maximize the unique data elements gave us a significant advantage over most of our, if not all, of our competitors. So the light bulb moment was looking at what was happening in Silicon Valley, looking at our space and how we were doing things, and our unique perspective on having all of this data, being under the hood of all of these different databases, having that come together in a way was the genesis for the creation of VeraData.
Let's talk terms. Let's talk more terms here. You mentioned a couple. Here's one that we've all heard and are hearing more and more. Often when people hear AI, they think of, in some cases, like renegade robots and advanced algorithms that are taking over the world. That said, technology isn't innately bad or good. It's all about how it's used. So, is there a story you can share about your why for your commitment to using AI for social good?
Yeah, renegade robots and AI are very different things, although they could combine at some point. So I think people and companies use AI for a lot of different applications, and they're expanding pretty rapidly. We were fortunate enough to engage really early on with a nonprofit agency, and I think we quickly learned a lot about that philanthropic space. And there's a number of things that led us here. And I think a whole different set of things have kept us focused here in that philanthropic sector. So first and foremost, and maybe everybody knows this, you know this, data it's like the fuel that's required to power machine learning engines. The more data we have, the smarter we are. At the same time, charities are typically 5+ years behind their commercial counterparts relative to technology and enterprise solutions, simply due to budget constraints. Some of those budget constraints are real. I think some of them are artificially self-imposed. Charities are held to a much different set of standards than for-profit companies. They don't have the benefit of being able to invest to the same degree. And there's not a lot of private equity or public market money pouring into charities to get an ROI. So because of that, we ended up offering charities a free model building process, and we gave them this sliding scale price that was tied directly to the improvement of their KPIs. Irrespective of what they wanted to improve, we did all the heavy lifting for free. They only paid a fee when outcomes improved. And this is what kind of led to the breakthrough. So in this industry, there is more receptivity to data sharing and a willingness to capture and to code detailed information, more detailed information that we can use to make the models even smarter. Just the uniqueness of this industry enabled us to access more of the fuel that we needed for the machines more rapidly than we could in other industries. There's not the same type of cutthroat competition that there is in basically every other commercial vertical market, right? This was really the key that unlocked the access to this area of concentration for us. Secondly, what we discovered working with numerous charities is that basically everybody in this industry is a good person. They're good human beings. They've dedicated their careers to helping others. And I can't overemphasize the importance of that, right? It changed our perspective on the world. It changed who we hired. It changed how we engaged with clients. It was really just better in every way. Today, 25%-ish of our team has worked for or has led the fundraising departments of a charity. And most come from larger charities. So that nonprofit culture has kind of found its way into the walls of VeraData, and it's wonderful, inside and out, right? All of us get to come to work every day to help others. And I don't think there's anything more fulfilling than that. It manifests in the way that we serve the organizations who serve others. And the ROI in that case is it's helping the world, it's helping humanity, it's curing disease, saving animals, right? The emotional return on investment is limitless in this industry. So that's how we got into it. It was unique. And it helped us ramp up our capability faster. And in the process, we just fell in love with the space and have now dedicated our lives to making it a much more successful element.
That's awesome. And I love how you referenced it the way that you did, to say that not only like what brought you here, but what has kept you here. And just that dedication to doing good so people can do better. Let's talk about another word here, another term. Let's talk about donor science, because while I'm not a master at all at computer science or data science, I am familiar with them. What I'm not familiar with, but I'm very curious about, is what's referred to as donor science. So please share, what is it and how is it used?
I don't know how to answer that briefly, but I'll do my best. So this industry has a lot of what I can only refer to as best practices that are really anything but that. The systems of data attribution and performance measurement are all corrupted through impurity of data, right? The way that it's coded, the way that it's measured, it's just not good. And I think the worst part is nobody even realizes that they're doing it. It's not their fault. It's just how the industry has always run itself. Now that we have the compute power and the knowledge to guide the unwinding of those bad habits and capture accurate, complete, timely, consistent data across a much broader range of information, we can standardize everything at scale. So we get very, very granular with the data. And I don't want to share too much about the secret sauce, but it's essentially we're using AI, donor science, right? We're using AI to guide hundreds of fundraising decisions, not just the audience, which has historically been this business, but the channel that we communicate with, or combination of channels, the frequency and sequence of communications, the graphics that are used on the outer envelope within the package itself, the ask arrays, how much we're asking a potential donor to give or an existing donor to give, the types of and sizes of fonts, anything and everything that you can think of that would stimulate donation activity. It's converting the use of spreadsheets and databases, reporting tools, and human analysis with massive algorithms that don't make mistakes, right? That don't forget anything, that can think multidimensionally to an incomprehensible degree, right? For a rudimentary visual, it would be like, strapping a million of Albert Einstein's brains together and focusing them all on just helping one charity execute one campaign, one fundraising campaign. The more information that we collect and that we metabolize, the smarter that ecosystem becomes. So the Donor Science Collaborative is designed to help not only our clients, but even our competitors. And we affectionately refer to them as the co-opetition, because this industry is a little bit unique. We work hand in hand with a lot of competitors. We circulate information back and forth. We buy things from one another in order to help. So it's a little bit different in that perspective. We have a pretty big dream, and it's gonna take all of us to create the global change that we know is possible. And you can only really do that through donor science. And it's the outcomes of this. We've seen it across the work today. We're expanding audiences, the number of people that a charity can market to profitably. There's all kinds of things that are algorithmically based that help convert and help build these relationships at a faster clip. Is that useful? Is that enough?
Very much. Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And thank you for boiling it down and making it digestible and consumable, because at the end of the day, it's common denominators, right? For someone else to be able to understand, we have to find that common denominator. So thank you.
Yeah.
So at VeraData, your vision is to change the world by increasing philanthropic giving as a measurable component of GDP. Now, question here is, what could this do? What do you feel it could do for our country? And then beyond that, what could it do for the world?
So that's the big dream, right? Philanthropy has been sitting just below 3% of GDP for decades. And the promise of donor science, again, we can expand audiences. We can connect with the next generation of donors ahead of the curve. We can accelerate the economic relationships between charities and the donors, migrating donors up that giving pyramid. People that give twice a year at $50, and monthly givers, mid-level givers, major gifts, planned giving, moving people up the pyramid, identifying capacity and propensity far in advance, far faster than we've ever been able to do before, learning how to communicate them, and ultimately, increase charitable giving as a percent of GDP. So we'd like to think, running the numbers as we have, we'd like to think that we can get to 4 or 5%. And if we achieve that, and I'm not exaggerating here, it could literally save the world. Even if we come up short, we end up helping millions more than we otherwise could have served. And what better legacy to leave behind? What better could we hope to achieve than something like that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I love how you say, like, even if we fail, like, at least we've helped so many. Like, it's how they say, right? Like, you shoot for the moon, you miss, like, you hit the stars, and then that's a great place to be.
Yep.
So we've talked about past and present. So let's now skip forward to the future. If you were to look in a crystal ball and gaze into tomorrow and tomorrows that follow tomorrow, what would tech doing good in the world look like?
So if you think about the human race ability to understand information, in the context of Moore's law, we're now in the visual is the second half of the chessboard, and Moore's law says that compute capacity doubles every 12 to 18 months. And if you think back to 34 years ago, when that concept originated, the further we move down the continuum, the more exponential the gains. So think about it like this. This year, our world's compute capacity doubled from last year. So effectively, it took 33 years to get to where we were a year ago. It took 1 year to double it. You condensed 34 years of what some would say is rapid evolution into 1 year. And next year, it's going to double again. And at this stage of that type of advancement, the explosive expansion, it's difficult to conceive. Quantum computing is emerging. I think in the not so many years ahead, it's going to unlock a level of compute capability that you just can't begin to imagine. And virtually unlimited bandwidth, immediately on demand. If you think about, I think the most significant barrier for humans to learn and communicate, it's input-output capacities. So think about how we learn. We have to read or hear or see things to learn. And everybody's heard the statistic that we only use 10% of our brain. And with the concepts like Neuralink, who just had their first human install, and quantum computing, the human race theoretically is going to be able to unlock, I think, a far greater intellectual capability than ever before, right? You've seen the Matrix, plug in something and learn how to fly a helicopter in 12 seconds. That's the idea. And while it's fantasy today, I think it's quite possibly the reality of tomorrow. And human ingenuity, the capacity for good, sadly, probably for other things, but the capacity for good could be rapidly compounded, right? There are many upsides and always downsides to this, but to bring a contemporary issue into context, I think our ability to moderate and to distinguish fact from fiction is going to be the maybe the most important hurdle to cross, to have the future that we want for our children. It's an exciting time. I love being in this space. The advancements, the evolution, our team's focus on R&D and staying ahead of this industry and staying ahead of the world. It is a full time and a half job just to keep up with the technology and to be able to do the things that we want to do. So I think the future, I don't know if this is a good answer. I think the future is very bright and the possibilities are expanding rapidly and are ultimately endless.
And the word you use, like inconceivable, like they're just not, like, how could we imagine? Maybe it's not in our capacity to be able to imagine such things. But to trust the possibility that they could bring. So one more question for you today, Michael. For those who feel like time is not on our side, what advice do you have for making the most of the technology that we have, the moments that we have with what we have, even if time is not indeed on our side? What advice?
So it's pretty philosophical. I would say that the advice I give myself, that I give my kids, and that I give those around me it's actually anti-technology. It's to simply be intentionally present, to be in the moment, make it a habit to disconnect from technology. Enjoy family, enjoy friends, enjoy nature, and do what you love. Life is short, and this world is so fast. The social media and the addiction, the dopamine, all the things that are happening around us detract from what I would consider to be life. So be present, be in the moment, take the time to have the human connection.
I love that advice. Thank you so much, Michael, for sharing your story, for sharing more about VeraData, and thank you for helping all of us become a bit more aware now. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.